Welcome to the eSales Podcast, your ultimate guide to mastering the art of online selling. Whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, digital marketer, or sales professional, this podcast is the passport to dominating the digital marketplace. My name's V, your eSales navigator. Join me as we dive into the latest strategies, tools, tactics to help you automate and conquer the world of online sales. Get ready to boost your online sales game and unlock your full potential. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Isaac. We're really looking forward to having you part of our sales podcast. And so I'd like to introduce everyone here to him today. He's a narratologist who began his journey as a narrative designer. Ultimately, he became a transmedia director. And I guess along the way, he managed to use different approaches to harness the power of storytelling and use it as a communication tool to scale his business through communication, influence, sociology, and mental health. And now he's currently on his own journey to doing his own business and sharing this with other insights and entrepreneurs such as yourselves who are listening in the podcast through branding classes to really unlock their full potential of narrative across all their industries. So Isaac, such a pleasure to have you on this show, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So we had a really good conversation just a couple of days ago before you jumped on this podcast around what you do. And you kind of showed me a few of your, techniques that you use to kind of tap into someone's story to kind of sell and attract the right clients into their business. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So during my time when I was focused on transmedia, I wanted to be really careful with what narrative structure I could use in order to best make the ideal story. I grew up with the archetypes. I love the archetypes, but I needed something more. And so I ended up developing a bit of my own structure. And so moving over to branding, I figured out that I could take my structure and rearrange it in particular patterns to fit different types of industries. So coming over here, I work on branding, in which case the slogan that I have is connect, communication, and community. And my goal with branding is to kind of bring all three of those things to the surface. To give you a relatively quick highlight, the primary thing that I use in everything related to narrative is what we call a beat. It's the smallest element of narrative, and it's an emotion, behavior, belief, and value. And what that is you have a character and something happens to them. So they have an emotional reaction, and then they do something because they believe it'll get them closer to what they value the most. The key here is that that's how all of our memories are formed. When you think back to any memory, good or bad, that's exactly what happens. You had an emotion because something happened to you, and then you did something because it got you closer to what you valued most. It takes about 7 seconds to create a first impression with somebody, and that really is all about them coming in and starting some kind of conversation or dialogue with you and determining what type of those four assets that you have, and if they're similar enough to who they are in order to create that connection. So that's definitely the first step in moving in this direction. And we call that a product narrative and branding. So when you're setting up your business brand and everything, you utilize those four assets to determine, okay, what emotions do I feel about my product? What do I do with my product, or what does my product do for somebody else? And why does it do it? And what's the value that's getting closer? So for me, I love teaching story because the connections and communication it gives allows for a community to thrive around yourself, your business, and your values.
Yeah, amazing. And I really like how you said there was like 7 seconds where you create that instant connection with someone. Tell us more about that, and how can we kind of leverage those 7 seconds to kind of bring the right clients on board?
Yeah. So, it's very easy when you're trying to sell a product to immediately go with the features. It's very easy to say, oh, look at all the cool stuff, my stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I'm over here, like I've got a new narrative structure that is very easy to get attached to. That's very easy to understand. So I do the same thing. But at the end of the day, what you are looking for is to create that connection first. Because who are you more likely to buy from? If you have a friend that offers you one product and you have a stranger who offers you another product, if you can afford it, you'll probably buy with the friend, even if their price is more, even if maybe they don't have the latest features than you will with a stranger. And call it what you will, call it trust, call it anything like that. But overall, that connection that you feel with them is going to drive that decision far more than any features and any price will.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I was actually watching a clip somewhere along the lines to say don't sell the actual product. Like if you're going to sell a Rolex, you're not selling a Rolex. You're selling the feeling, the superiority, the status when you're actually wearing a Rolex. So it kind of resonates with me when you actually say that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much I agree with that statement. And
Okay,
and
tell
the
me more.
reason why is it's actually a little tricky here. So, first of all, you're right. That is kind of what you're selling, but that's not really what you're selling. That's just your connection point. That's your gateway in to sitting back
Mm,
and being like, if I wanted to be your friend, I'd be like, this is who I am. Who are you? You tell me who you are. And again, this is all subconsciously done, so it happens in a matter of milliseconds.
yeah.
But overall, that you're creating a connection with those feelings. But when you're selling someone, it's a little bit different of a process.
Mm,
So a story is what I use what are called segments. There are 7 different segments in each story.
yeah.
For this, we call them consumer narratives. And there's 7 different types, and they're each relatively unique, but they all follow the same structure. There's a need, a conflict, a resonance, a connection, and a value. So to give you a bit of an example, I use what's called the identity story. The need for that, and this is a universal need. So I teach the same thing every time. I'll
Mm,
coach and tailor it differently to different people's products, but in my class, it's still universal. So the universal need for the identity story is understanding, and the universal value for that story is fidelity, is loyalty. So I'll come in and I'll say, hey, businesses who do not understand their story, businesses who price on features, they end up competing. This is the competition or the conflict part. They'll compete on price, they'll compete for market share, they'll compete with ads, and it'll drain your mental health, it'll drain your energy, it'll suck your money and time away. But and then this is the middle part, the resonance, and this resonance is your product narrative. But I love teaching story because I teach people how to connect with their ideal clients and communicate them in a way that they will absolutely buy. So I come in as the resonance, and then I teach them how to connect to their clients. And then last part is the value. And that again, for
mm,
this one, is fidelity, which is a loyalty. So
yeah.
when you connect with your ideal clients, there will be a community that grows around you that is absolutely loyal to who you are. So yeah, when you sell a Rolex, you're selling the feeling, you're selling the vibe, but at the same time, that's a validation story. You're
Mm.
helping someone move from having low self-esteem to having confidence in themselves by selling status. And so the
True.
feeling is there, but the feeling is just connecting. It's the need and the value that help you really sell it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I really like that how it's just a connection and how you actually communicate with your own narrative. So tell us more about you were just saying, and I've forgotten the word you said, communicate, connect, communicate, and what was the last one, sorry?
Community.
Community, that's right. So tell us more about when someone comes in just as a instant connection point, and then tell us more about the resonance side, what you do, how you can help someone kind of find their little story and the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, I want to start with well, actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and talk about the consumer narratives. And again, there are 7. So there are 7 needs, and I'll list them off for you here, but they're based on Abraham Maslow's extended hierarchy of needs. So they're right there
Mm,
as well.
yeah.
But you have a person who needs to feel cared for, you have a person who needs to feel safe, you have a person who needs to know where they belong, you have a person who needs higher self-esteem, you have a person who needs to understand themselves and others and the world around them. You have a person who needs to be able to see beauty in, again, themselves or the world around them or in others. And then you have a need that is you need to know your place in the world. And these needs are things that we all have. Every single human has them. This is not to say that, like, if you have a significant other, they're not important. They absolutely are. Memories with that person are absolutely important. But if the relationship ends or if someone passes away, you can find another relationship. Why? Because it's not necessarily just about that person. I know that this seems sacrilege. I'm a classic hopeless romantic, love at first sight, all the classic cheesy romance films and everything. And to be clear, I know that they're bad. I just enjoy them anyways. So
Mm.
that shouldn't take away from my credibility, I hope. But overall, it's the feeling that you get from this person, the value that you get. They're that middle part. They are that resonance. That's the value you get at the end. And the values are hope, will, purpose, confidence, fidelity, love, and care. So you have a character who needs to feel cared for, but the world is pushing down against them. It'll stop them from being who they're supposed to be. A mentor figure will come in, care for that person, and it'll pull them out of it, and connect them with who they're supposed to be. And then they have hope for the future of developing that individual person. I was that it's a relatively rare story to use. The second one is you have a character who needs to feel safe, but there's so many new and dangerous things around them because they chose to go on an adventure. So
Yep.
someone needs to come in and provide the weapons or confidence or powers to be able to pass through that. They connect with those abilities and learn how to use them, and then they have the willpower to push through challenges. This is a big thing where everyone says, oh, well, the new generation is just lazy. No, that's not the case. They just don't have the tools needed to maneuver through the insanity. Everyone can have the willpower to push through challenges if they have the tools. And that's a really powerful story that a lot of education systems use.
Yeah.
The third one, someone needs to understand or where they belong in the world, but people just want them to stay in the same spot. So if you can help them connect with other spots in the world, then they connect with that. Then all of a sudden they begin to sense that their purpose is to be here or to be with this person or to do this.
Yep.
The fourth one is about low self-esteem. And if they have that low self-esteem, if you're able to provide tests and challenges and encouragement, then they'll start gaining a sense of confidence within themselves. The next one is about understanding. And again, this is what I teach. If you understand your story, if you understand who you are and what you enjoy and what you like to do, this is where that old Japanese saying ikigai comes in, right? What do you do? What can you make money with? What do you love? What helps the world? Ikigai really is, in terms of business, the ideal identity story.
Yeah.
And if you can figure that out, and that's part of what I do, if you understand what you do, I'll teach you how to make money from it. I'll teach you how to make a product from it. I'll teach you how to connect and communicate that to others and help the world with even the simplest things. And then you gain a community around who you are. But when you change, it's hard to see the beauty in who you are now when you were so connected to the person you were before. So you have to come in, someone has to come in, show you the beauty in that, and then you become intimate with them. You get this deep emotional connection with someone or something that shows you who you are, and then you develop love for that person, place, or thing. And then finally, the last story is that everyone needs to be able to know how to give back to the world. At this point, people talk about gratitude all the time, but this is really the point where gratitude comes in, because you can now feel that gratitude and you kind of want to pay it back.
Yeah.
So you become generous with your
Yes.
time, with your money, with your experiences. This is kind of what all entrepreneurs are, is they are generous. Even though it is a transaction, they're still giving time and money and tools to a group of individuals to make more money, but at the same time at a cheaper rate that takes less time and less money than it took them to figure it out. And so there's a generosity there that shows how to care for the world, how to care for that community that you were putting together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's dive deeper into that. I'm actually quite curious to kind of figure out and talk about an example. So you've spoken about the different scenarios, right? So I'm thinking for the listeners here, if they were to really understand more in terms of one example that you can pick one of your favorites, the problem where they're facing, and all of a sudden how you've come in and figured out their story, and then the end goal with what their outcomes are. You can make it up. You can use a client's example. Feel free to kind of share that with the audience so that it can kind of resonate.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're asking for my favorite, it's the identity story.
Yes, share us
And
more.
I've given you an example of the identity story through my thing, so I'm not going to use that. But the reason why the identity story is my favorite is because narrative is fractal. Narrative, I can describe the entire story of your life about how you were a baby, you need to be cared for, you trusted your parents, but you needed to feel safe in the world outside of them. So they gave you tools like education, the willpower to push through difficult. So I can do that. But I can also talk about how you felt cared for in your bed, but that's not going to prepare you for your day. Someone, or you and your willpower got yourself up out of bed so that you guys could prepare for get ready for the day, prepare for the day, have hope that the day is going to be a good day. So we can utilize your whole life, or we can utilize a single day. So it's fractal in that way. And the reason why I bring that up is because the individual aspects that we use also work on a societal level. And if you were to ask me, at least in the state of the world, where I am in a stateside, but also I think we see this in a lot of places, identity is kind of the story that everyone's in. We're trying to figure out our identity collectively and as individuals, and everyone lives that no matter when or where they're born. But that is something I see in the world today. So that's one of the reasons that one is my favorite. However, to go to a different example, I was working with a guy who was utilizing he was a private trainer, personal trainer, and he didn't have a whole lot of clients. One of them was like 1 foot out the door, and he came. I had worked with him in the creative space a little bit, and so he came to me. Said, "I'm not really sure what to do." This is early on when I just had started kind of moving to the branding side. And I sat down and I said, okay, what exactly do you feel when you're able to do this stuff? And he talked me through how he was, originally really, really overweight. He had diabetes that had a huge impact on his life. And the doctor was like, okay, well, you need to change your eating habits. And he's like, I'm not sure if I can do that. He's like, okay, at least start working out and just try and push off the snacking just a little bit. And so he started doing that. And he started building more and more habits. And eventually he lost a whole ton of weight, and his diabetes was put into remission. So that was like a huge thing for him. And at that point, he fell completely in love with the gym. So overall, I was able to kind of get back to the fact that, okay, so you need to connect with people who are similar in that vein. So the gym gives you a lot of joy because it allows you to overcome the disabilities and distractions that you had to face. And you believe that if you can utilize that, then you can begin to live a life filled with joy and meaning. So that's kind of the direction that we took it. We made it a little bit more specific. We said, okay, you love the gym because it gives you the ability to wake up feeling strong and capable to take the day on with joy. And he utilized that to connect to other people. I was like, okay, great. Well, now we need to figure out your story. So I just went down and I said, okay, so what exactly are the needs? Do you have people who need to feel cared for, need to feel safe, need to belong? And I think that we ended up settling on the first one of like that feeling of needing to be cared for. So I said, okay, so you have a clientele who needs to be cared for medically because they have these issues, and the diabetes makes it to where they need to feel cared for and they can't really do it on their own. So you come in, you help them, you care for them in the gym space and help them build these new habits. And when they're able to connect with the ideal habits, it ends up giving them the ability to take care of themselves and have hope for that future. And so we started developing that. From there, we started working on different touch points. So, he didn't do any advertising or commercials at the time. He just started by taking that message back to his clientele. That's it. Then we started working on some creative stuff. He was relatively creative, so we worked on some touch points. We ended up developing a workout routine that he put out on a flyer, and then on the back it had his message. It was kind of like a little business card that he had, but it had a list of like workouts you could do without him, without the gym, without equipment, anything. And on the back it talked about why this was so important to him, and he would put that in flyers and mailboxes. And eventually it got to the point where he got a whole ton of clients, and a bunch of those clients came in from like a support group for the diabetes that one of his clients was already in. And so
Incredible.
this was a while ago that I was working with him,
Yeah,
but eventually he called me up, like just
that's
losing his
amazing.
mind,
That's
because
amazing.
he had got an invitation to a party that they were having to celebrate two of his clients going into remission.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Wow, I love that story. And I love how you managed to kind of get that story and the why. And also it's his story, right? And his story is just selling through the brochures, whether it's with the wording or not, it's just his story and the feeling that he's actually experiencing that is selling and attracting that audience that is kind of going through a similar thing, or a couple of steps behind what he is. So I'm loving that story, and I think that really resonates. I used to be a personal trainer as well, and that was kind of like the space that I was in. So I really like that story, how it kind of resonates with me as well. So thank you for sharing, Isaac. Now, if you're serious about taking your sales skills to the next level and you really want to scale your sales online, then please sign up to our sales school. We currently have a waiting list at the moment, so we'll put a link in the description below so you can put your name down for our next entry. Our sales school is not just a normal course, it's not just a program, it's an experience where you'll get to learn the tools, the tricks, the trades as to how to automate your sales and scale online. You'll be able to really tap into the nitty gritties of our mindset, energy shifts around objections or different lies that we tell ourselves. And so basically, we are going to help accelerate, hold your hand side by side, so that way you really get to boost your sales online.
Yeah, happy to. And, one of the things you had brought up earlier was about how to form a community. And I'm not going to dive into that too much, but the process is relatively simple. So I told you there are those 7 stories. Well, what you find out is, like you said, it's his story. His
Yes.
story is those 7 stories put back to back to back to back to back. And when you put those stories together and that's something you're able to share, people will resonate with that like you
Yeah.
have, and they'll build a community around that. And that's really where that community side comes from.
Yeah.
As you sit back, I connect with you because we feel the same way. I communicate your needs with you so you know that I understand and can help you, and then
Yes.
you connect with my story and we're
Yes.
going to rally around what you're
Yes.
doing.
100%. Fantastic, Isaac. And I think this is a really different framework and different structure as to what we've been hearing with sales. So how does your storytelling help clients with handling objections?
Yes. Okay. So this is where we get into a very interesting thing. You talk about all these tips, and that's so funny because that's how I learned a lot of narrative too. And I came across narrative structure, and narrative structure is great. Like, I actually
Yes.
don't go against narrative structure. I love the hero's journey and all the archetypes and everything,
Yeah.
but it wasn't easily transferable. It wasn't something that we could that I could share that everyone understood. It was very
Yeah.
easy to fall away from an archetype and into a trope. So, like,
Yes.
the mentor figure, it's always like the bearded white guy, and people do that because they don't know what the mentor figure is. But when you break it down like this, you understand that the mentor figure is someone who the character needs to feel cared for. So the mentor figure comes in, pulls them out of the conflict, lets them trust them, and connects them with a part of themselves. That's what the mentor figure is. And so that's the key to that. So you're right about all the tips and tricks and everything. Now, how do you handle objections? Well, there's a couple reasons why these objections pop up. One of them might be because you're using the wrong story, in which case, if that's the case, you kind of need to readjust it. One thing I teach in my class, and I wish I had time to go over it all here, is that some emotions, behaviors, beliefs, and values kind of connect. And so, if someone is like overly happy, they're very extroverted. If someone is a little aggressive and angry, you know that they'll be generous if you just flip it around on them. So these things connect, and you only have to grab one to know the rest. But people are complicated, so they'll often
Of
show
course.
multiple signs.
Yes.
So that gets a little crazy and gets a little complicated. But
Yes.
overall, you should have less objections if you're utilizing this story. If you do still have objections, everything that I teach is about how to use positivity. So the emotions that we use are joy, trust, generosity, joy, trust. I created this stuff and I still need to recall it sometimes, but joy, trust, generosity, and excitement. Now, if for some reason that's not working, I don't teach negativity in terms of creating a narrative with that, but you can always use the appropriate negative time to be able to get it away. So if you have someone buying something, you get them really, really hyped up, then all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't know my financial situation. I've got to talk to this person, that person. Like, okay, I completely get it. However, and people will say to use FOMO all the time, but FOMO works when excitement is the positive emotion. You can then be like, okay, so here's the deal. I've talked you through this. I hope you've got enough to get started, but figure this out and call me back as soon as possible because I don't have a whole lot of space or I don't have a whole lot of stuff until I get more materials or until I get more time. So FOMO works on those who are really excited. Anger works on those who are really, really generous, right? If they're coming in, they're like, oh, I'd love to do this for this person. You're like, oh, well, you know what? Here's the deal. If you can't access this now, this person's probably going to step in and get it. And you can kind of use that aggression. Happiness uses sorrow, right? If they're really happy to do something, but they're kind of hesitant, like, well, if you don't get it, this is what's going to happen. You can kind of use that sob story. And then trust is the same thing with disgust. So utilizing the negative emotions, not just FOMO, which is a good overall skill to use. Everyone has a little bit of fear, but it works really well if you pair the right negative emotion to the right positive one.
Oh, I love that so much. I think that really helps. Like, I like how you said the anger one. All I need is a little bit of generosity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you have someone who's
Yeah.
coming in and they're really aggressive about something, and we see this in like skits and stores and stuff, where you get this woman coming in, they're like, we have to speak to the manager, and this was ridiculous, and they come in so aggressive because they're normally so generous. And when they're generous, they're like, I'm not going to get what I want. So I have to come in forceful. And if you come in and be like, no, that is ridiculous, and you get mad with them, then they'll kind of calm down. And then you'll be like, okay, look, now that their anger is gone, their generosity is kind of stepping back in. And you're like, look, I got you. I'm going to get this taken care of. Let me sweep this away. And all of a sudden, they will be a customer for life, even though you messed up, because you talk them away from the negative and into the positive. Same thing with sorrow, right? If they come in bawling their eyes out, you sit there and you just listen and cry with them a little bit, and then you say, guess what? I know how to fix this, and bring that joy back into their life. You'll turn them into a customer for life.
Oh, I think there is so much to untap here, and I really think that I really hope that we had more time to actually tap into it. I think the positive, negative kind of emotions, I think I'd love to kind of hear more. But if people wanted to find out more about you, more about these objection handling, more about their, I guess, archetypes, your version of it, how and where can they find you?
Yeah, so my company is called the Creative Continuum. You might also find me under the name Authentic Branding, because that's going to be the branding arm, but I'm using the Creative Continuum for the whole thing until I start developing the other classes. But I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube. I'm still developing my presence, but you'll be able to find me under those names, a purple banner with gold lettering, and it's either under the Creative Continuum or Issac Pheonix. And I'll be happy to help anyone with whatever I can. But right now, especially, is when I'm selling the branding classes.
Of course, that's fantastic. And what we'll do is we'll have all these links in the description of the podcast. So feel free to check Issac out in all his channels. So Issac, before we close off, what's one thing that you would suggest to the listeners to scale their sales, today?
Okay, so I would sit back and I would say that it's really hard to pick one thing. And so I'm going to reinforce everything that we have. So, first of all, if you're going to go for leads and you want those leads to be willing to listen to you, you have to connect. And again, that's the emotion, behavior, belief, and value. And you will turn cold leads into warm leads very quickly. Now, then, in order to sell those warm leads, to turn them into customers, you want them to be able to truly understand to truly feel like you understand them. And everyone is unique. Everyone has their own memories. They have specific needs. But if you remember those 7 universal needs, then you know that they'll feel understood. And then finally, it's the community angle, to where you need people to be return customers. You need people to give you referrals. You need people to spread word of mouth. That comes in the community aspect. And that just comes from being authentic with who you are and telling a part of your story. And, even people who aren't the best storytellers, when they access their memories, their imagination, which is responsible for dreams, so you think it would be a huge mess, but the memories are usually pretty well organized. And when you go over your memories with somebody and you utilize that, because your memories will click into place automatically with someone who's sharing similar emotions, behaviors, beliefs, and values. And when you share those memories, you're creating a friendship, even a parasocial relationship. Even if you're on social media, you're still creating that parasocial friendship. And that's going to create that community that will give you those referrals, repeat clients, and word of mouth.
Thank you so much, Issac. So it's just making sure we reiterate the whole entire journey. So we're connecting with the brand, connecting with the people, and connecting with yourself as well. So thank you so much, Issac. Any last words before we close off for the session today?
No, other than just to pitch you giving me a space to come in and talk. So absolutely, thank you for that. And I know I'll be listening to your podcast to make sure that I get as many tips and tricks as possible. So to have everyone come in, listen, and subscribe to make sure that they're fully ready to go with everything that their business needs to take it from where they are to where they want to be, and then far beyond that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Issac. It's a pleasure. It is always a pleasure connecting with you. Thank you so much again. And I really hope we get to do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much again for tuning into the show. If you're keen on signing up to the sales school, please click the link below. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, and share our show to your network so that way we can help build a community of fun sales for everyone. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. My name's V, and remember to keep selling, keep being you, and keep having fun. Wanna hear you go.